marijuana use to the committee up in Tallahassee that hears the report. And it's always painful. And we have a brand new opioid director this year who.
And then also just give me the 2 minutes because I don't have my.
We got a brand new opioid director.
Yeah.
Ruta, could the guy have been any stiffer or what?
Oh my God, the guy needed some laxatives. He was that bad.
He's a disciple. He's a disciple of Governor DeSantis, and he's a named.
All right, we're on. Hold on, Barry.
Lawyer.
We ready?
Great.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Green Room. Today, Dr. Barry is on the road, headed for a cruise. And we have a very special guest, a really good friend of Dr. Barry's. So say hello to everyone out there.
No, we do. Listen, actually, we're on, Patty and I, she's driving, I'm being safe. We're on our way to Panama. And we're going to Panama City.
Not Panama City, Panama, Florida.
Panama City, Panama.
Panama.
And listen, I'd love to say we have Dr. Bridget with us, and I'll introduce her in a second. I'd love to say that I'm going out to check out the cannabis world down there, the medical cannabis research that's going on, but that's not true. Patty and I are going for our anniversary, 23 years together, and we found out that it's Carnival down there actually this weekend. So it's going to be pretty raucous.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be great. So, but yes, listen, Dr. Bridget Williams is joining us from Ohio today. And really, listen, Bridget, we've got about 110, or I don't know, Don, what, 120 or so podcasts in the can already. I've been doing it for a while, and I know that you have too. And it's such an honor to have you join us. Well, and as we were talking before coming on, we always talk a little bit of politics. And I know Ohio, which is why you and I bond as we do, OH.
Yeah.
And I know you're a Michigander too. And I want to shout out all of our Michigan
You
friends.
heard me hesitate there. I'm like,
I was going to say there's a little bit of hesitation with that, Ohio.
Like, I don't know if I can say that out loud. People, you know, my Michigan.
Listen, you can. You know, my brother and my sister, UM grants. But I want to give a big shout out to Michigan State and all of our friends up there in East Lansing. And another one of our horrible tragedies around the country. You know, we were talking before coming on air. You know, Bridget and Ruta and I could talk probably for 3 hours about what's going on in the country right now, all the social ills and things of that nature. But, you know, we're going to get to the cannabis topics. But specifically, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams is joining us from Ohio, and she runs Green Harvest Health up there, which is a medical cannabis clinic. And I'm so interested in hearing what's going on in Ohio in the medical cannabis world. Also, though, she's been an accomplished author and editor of a book called Courage in Cannabis that focuses on patient stories. And, you know, Bridget, Ruta will tell you that she and I always talk about bringing patient stories into the green room. And you've taken the steps to do that. And I'm so interested in hearing about your work. But let's just start a little bit about cannabis in general. Do you face the same obstacles up in Ohio that we do, Bridget? And I know the answer already because you guys have battled to put autism, right, as one of your qualified conditions with an unbelievable effort by an advocate that I know that you know. I know Tiffany Carwile, who has literally put thousands of hours into the effort. So I know you face the same struggle that we do. Tell us a little bit about what's going on up in Ohio and medical cannabis.
Absolutely. So, you know, we're a conservative state, and ultimately
we are too.
Oh, so is Florida.
And so with that being said, it's going to make our cannabis program probably even more conservative compared to some other states, right? And so though we, you know, to be totally honest, I'm always impressed that we have a program. To, you know, when people get kind of riled up, and I don't know if it's just like counting your blessings or what have you, but at the end of the day, I'm always surprised that we have what we have here, period. And that is really due to the amazing advocates and activists that have gotten us this far. But yeah, we have struggled to, as far as I'm concerned, to support the patients sometimes that are really needing this program and needing the benefits of medical cannabis from physicians that are seeing it as medicine and want to support their patients. And so, as you were saying, we're looking to try to get autism again. We're looking to get addiction again, getting some other mental health disorders or diagnoses on this list is really important as well. And to really build a community of physicians, as far as I'm concerned, that are most concerned about healthcare in the cannabis space.
Right.
How is it being perceived though, like in the state of Ohio by other physicians? Because here in Florida, there's still a lot of pushback from, the regular practicing MDs, they're still conservatively taught and there's still a lot of pushback. So is that the same in Ohio?
I've seen a progression. So since we opened our offices at the end of 2018, and we got our first dispensary in 2019. And in the beginning, I had patients that were being kicked out of their, primary care, pain management, and even specialty practices because of it. I have seen over this period of time that I have physicians that are more willing to have conversations, but the stigma is still very strong. I think most physicians are looking for permission to accept cannabis as a medical option. But I feel that, traditionally and historically, physicians have always been on the cutting edge, and we're scientists and we're researchers, and we should be able to think independently enough to see what's right for our patient population. And we've lost that somewhere along the road. But
listen, for sure, Bridget, you're seeing exactly what we're seeing here in Florida. You're about 2 years behind. Mm-hmm. And, Ruta will tell you that she hears me speak exactly the same message in every single one of my patients. That's kind of how I start the visit, that we're lucky to have what we have here now, the only legitimate program in the South voted on by the people back in 2016. And if we wouldn't have voted on it by constitutional amendment, we wouldn't have the program now, or surely just a shell of a program.
Yeah.
And I love how you do what you do. You give credit to those advocates who are out there blazing the trail for us when you were still at the Cleveland Clinic doing family medicine.
Right.
And I was doing emergency medicine in Alliance, Ohio. Right. Yeah. So I'm a carpetbagger in Florida, so to speak, to the extent that I always pay deference to those that really blaze the trail, and we're lucky to have what we have. Yeah, I wanted to ask you one specific thing that's interesting about Ohio, because you guys started with flower products in Ohio versus here in Florida, that we actually started with oil products. Yeah. And I know one of the things that you and I struggle to advance to doctors, both in the cannabis space, quite frankly, and surely politicians and those that don't do medical cannabis, is the range of the multiple cannabinoids that were offered now in 2023. That's not just the smoking of the joint in 1969, right?
Right.
So that to me is where you really start the discussion with doctors who are truly interested in learning about what we can offer in 2023. You have to get past THC as the only cannabinoid and past the smoking of the product, because no doctor is going to get behind smoking of a product until they understand the intricacies of cannabis, but vaping and the tinctures and patches and creams. And my joke is always the suppositories for the politicians, right? That's what makes cannabis medicine in 2023.
Yes.
But when you start with flower, so my point is to a lot of doctors, when you have to start with oils, you learn ratio medicine in cannabis. You learn about one-to-ones right from the get-go. Sometimes when you're into flower early on, that focus on THC and the flower that patients want. And I know what, you still can't smoke your flower in Ohio, right?
No,
it's vaping.
It's prohibited is pretty much the best way to kind of look at it.
So take over that discussion about how flower starting has been different Stand if you know if you know where I'm going with it.
Right. So, I mean, again, I'm always a little surprised about what we have in the first place, but we started with flower. Smoking is prohibited. There was this big push towards, people buying vaporizers and what have you. And I get it, like you said, if you're really talking about medicine, do you want people combusting? And the answer is typically no. But keep in mind, we do have like traditional pharmaceutical medicines that people inhale as a vaporization of that medicine. And so if we can focus more, as you're saying, on the cannabinoids, if they can learn about the significance of the terpenes, and that heating this up and getting the vapor off of this is a way of taking in that medicine and get away from all this. It's amazing how strong the stigma is, from how prohibition has made such an incredible job. I mean, I don't know if there's a better campaign, right? Because generations later, we can't get some of these images and ideas out of our head. But this is still real medicine, however you end up taking it in. And if we can, as we expand the options that are available, and we have a number of different capsules that are available in Ohio now, I think that lends people to see this more in a medicinal space because it's being used in a more traditional sense, right? And as we continue to grow and they see the benefits, and I see that now. I have pain management doctors that are now sending their patients to me, where those are the same ones that were kicking their patients out of their practice before. So we're growing. It just, I really recommend and plead to doctors to think independently and not to be brainwashed by the past.
The only thing that you always have to overcome the politicians. It's not even, it's one hurdle is the physicians. Then I think this industry faces two fronts. It really does. The traditional physician, and then you have the legislators. And leading up to this green room today, as Dr. Berry was talking, we listened in yesterday afternoon to our state legislators who had a commission presentation on the Office of Medical Marijuana. And the commentary from the legislators was just like appalling. They were like, so one, are we just basically drug dealers to these kids that want to buy drugs? Secondly was, okay, so what do they just want to go and get high? Like, I mean, there were like the comments that were flying at this meeting were just ridiculous.
But that's ignorance. It's just ignorance. My response to that is that, first of all, the majority of these programs are going to be people that are really 50 and over, okay? No matter how many young people are in the program, the actual numbers are adults that have chronic illnesses and problems. And so when I've gotten those type of comments, I literally stop whatever panel I'm on and then reiterate over and over again, I have sick patients. I have sick patients. I have cancer. I have multiple sclerosis. I have chronic pain. I have fibromyalgia. I have HIV. I have sick patients. And so whatever these ideals and stigma, they should be embarrassed to think in that way. When you have children with severe seizures that are looking for something to calm down their condition and their pain. So I think we need to do a better push of expressing and sharing that the great majority of these people are people that are seeking comfort and freedom from their conditions. And to be honest, that's really where Courage in Cannabis started. It was people that had amazing stories. And literally in the midst of people talking about access and growing and prices and kind of complaining about all the intricacies of the program, I was giving cards to big burly men and they were crying. And I stopped and I was like, okay, what's going on here? And these were people that were using it before the program, that were embarrassed, that had shame. I had a man say, I can show this card to my son and let him know I'm not a pothead, that I'm a real patient, that I have a problem and I have a condition. I had women that said, I'm taking this to church and I'm going to go back to church because I felt like I couldn't go to church because I was using cannabis for my pain or my anxiety. That's when I started writing down these stories and actually had the opportunity to publish them. I think it was the Cannabis Chronicles, a recommending physician's point of view. And then I stopped because I felt like they weren't my stories. And then COVID hit. Everyone's got that, right? And then COVID happened. And I met people that were doing anthologies out of the South, which gave people the opportunity to write their own stories, financially benefit from their own stories. And so I put the stories that I was writing aside, brought in all these people, and so that they could, and it was so therapeutic for them, so cathartic for them to be able to write their stories, right? And so that's really how Courage in Cannabis came about, because yes, there's all these political aspects to this, but behind all of that are sick patients that are seeking something different. And we need to focus on the aspect of it.
I agree. I think
Ruta, no, now you know why I was not going to cancel this green room, because seriously, I've been chasing Dr. Bridget down to get her into the green room for a bit. And, Don, I apologize. I wanted to make sure that we promote Dr. Bridget's book.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can roust it up somewhere to post it appropriately, but it deserves recognition, and it is the patient stories. And that is the one thing that does move these politicians, Bridget.
Yeah.
If you can get enough time in front of them, because they give you 30 seconds. And I tell everybody, all anybody has to do is come into one of our offices for a day and see who we're taking care of and what we do and how we do it. And we change minds every day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the people that are concerned about the young people and them getting high and whatever,
that's a big concern.
To be totally honest with you, so many of these young people are treating conditions that they have no idea, or the anxiety or the pain or the bipolar disorder that they have no idea, number one, okay? And they are such a smaller segment of this whole medical cannabis program than these other, older, like the majority of my practice are older patients that are chronically ill. And people don't see that and don't expect that at all. Right. And I think we need to do a better job of helping sometimes the younger people that are using it recreationally to really help them understand. Like, the reason that I was absolutely terrified of cannabis growing up is my best friend's cousin was a wild, wild child, and she always smelled of weed. And I was like, that's that crazy stuff. Absolutely terrified of it. And to be totally honest, my best friend was terrified too. We went to elementary, high school, college together, got married, kids at the same time. We've never had one conversation until I got into this space. And I said, did you ever even try it? Like, we've been in each other's. She never tried it because she was terrified. And I was like, what I know about cannabis now, as opposed to then, is I think your cousin had bipolar, and she was maybe 5 years older than us, right? And I was like, because I was scared of it, right? And I was like, I think it wasn't the cannabis. I think your cousin might have been bipolar. She got diagnosed in her late 40s. She was a teenage girl that knew something wasn't right. And she knew that this one thing made her feel a little bit better. And that little bit better wasn't high. That little bit better was getting closer to normal to the rest of us. And so I had so much compassion for what I did not understand at that time. And there's so many more people like that that we have no idea. So we need to get out of the stigma of all of this and really start helping people.
Yeah, it's 2023, and I don't care if you're up in Ohio or if you're down here in Florida. We're all coming out from behind the mask of COVID. But more importantly, I was so struck, Ruta, when I was watching the reports coming out of East Lansing. And what you have to know about the green room, Bridget, is that this is therapeutic for Ruta and I. We've gone through the Trump years. No, it is. We need this, therapeutically. Yes. So just talking about the gun violence, the lunacy in the country, and how we can't solve this, what I was struck by was that we have students now that are in their second school shooting. They were in high school in the Detroit area or wherever they went through one, and now they're at Michigan State, and it's their second one that they've had to duck and cover from. So what I say, Bridget, is that yes, we've always had. I think I was probably 80 myself way back when, and graduated high school in '74. And don't laugh at me. And Ruta, there's never a green room that goes by that
He's almost
Dr.
67.
Barry will be 60. He's almost 67 in May. Inside joke of the green room. But no, seriously, it's a different generation now. And we've all lost. And what I will ask you, Bridget, because you're in that generation, you've lost from narcotic overdose in your life. And when I ask my patients that poignantly, I get all kinds of different answers from I found my girlfriend dead to my dad's still addicted. There's a million stories. And of course, as an emergency room physician, I saw that occur. And Florida is so deeply implicated in the pill mill, quote unquote, aspect of it, because a lot of the northern pills that I was taking care of in the Alliance Ohio ER were coming from Florida. And people would literally get on an airplane in the Akron-Canton airport in the morning, fly down for $75 to Fort Lauderdale, go to 4 clinics during the day, get 800 Percocet and split them with the guy that paid for the flight in the evening. And we saw that develop. So we need better answers, is my point, in 2023 with safety, right? With safety and regulation. And, and when we get young people in the clinic and when we get old people in the clinic, we teach them the same thing. Every single patient. And I want to ask you this specifically because I know the answer already, although I wouldn't never put words in your mouth. But here in Florida, we get frustrated by the lack of education in way too many clinics, right? Surely those that illegally here in Florida do telehealth for initial visits, which was completely ignored in yesterday's hearing.
Meeting, yeah.
So
was Delta
the OMU
8.
director gave a completely insulting and completely ignorant answer. But my point is, I know telehealth's allowed in Ohio. And unfortunately, when we get a lot of our patients down from Ohio, they're really not educated. But I know in your clinic, you do educate. Does it frustrate you as much as it frustrates me to know that there are doctors in the space that are just card generators and really are doing what we all should be doing?
It is embarrassing. It is reprehensible. If you're talking about do no harm, if you're talking about
teach me some more words, Bridget, please, because I could just tell from how you come at it that yes, that's where you and I think, quite frankly, and few select others in this space right now can really make a difference, to talk to our peers.
Yes.
To talk to our peers about making sure that they get better.
It's beyond teaching a physician about cannabis. It's about the choice that they've made to be in a position to work with patients without any, that is a personal choice that they've decided to really, as far as I'm concerned, take advantage of these patients. And I feel that as far as being a physician, we've taken these oaths, we've decided to help people. And if you've decided to put money over education and helping your patients, then you're not a physician. You have sold your soul to be able to get a couple $100 for what? And how much would it hurt you to get the backing to understand what you're doing so that the person in front of you can actually do better? It's reprehensible. I don't understand it. It's unethical as far as I'm concerned, that if we are walking around with these medical licenses and the education that we've put into it, shame on you for taking advantage of this opportunity here.
But I think there has to,
especially when it comes to cannabis, because we have to be better. We have to be tip of the spear. Sorry, Ruta. We need to be sharp, right? And it just bugs me. That's why I don't have 15 Dr. Barry centers, right? I have no interest in 15 Dr. Barry centers because the quality would not be there. And I know when you go to Columbus and when I go to Tallahassee, and whatever we do nationally, right? We want to make sure we're standing on the firm soapbox, right?
Absolutely.
Of being a doctor and knowing what we see. And you wouldn't be as passionate as you are about what you do if you didn't have those patient stories, right? And if you didn't see it every single day.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think one of the biggest problems, though, and the biggest hurdles is you do have those outliers, and there's a lot of them. And I think that's like, I agree with you. I think there has to be some kind of, I always talk to Barry about this, some kind of coalition of the physicians, the ones who are doing it right. Because the problem is when you do hear the legislators, they have stories, as many as good stories of patients having success stories. You have a handful of the ones who have horrendous stories because they go to those outlying doctors where they don't know what they're doing and people get sick or they take the wrong dosing, and the legislators hear about that too. And I think that's the biggest problem, because it is like I said, I always think it's a two-front system. And I think the physicians themselves really, the ones who do a good job and believe in it as medicine and truly want to practice it as medicine, there has to be a stronger pushback of those outliers and to somehow weed them out, and even talk to legislators in every state and say, look, we want a true medical program. We don't want these guys who, are fly by night. And we heard, I had a girl that came in, we were doing some hiring, and she herself is a 22-year-old. And I said, where did you get I said, do you have a card? And she goes, I do. And I said, where'd you get it? She goes, in a hotel room. She goes, they came in, and she said, the doctor came in and there was a person with them. They said, okay, does anybody have any complaints or any issues? Okay, so come here, do your paperwork. We'll get your card. 6 months later, they called them back into that same hotel room. They said, everybody good? Everybody good. That was it. She said it wasn't even 5 minutes. And it was a room full of people in a hotel. And that's what got her card. And you hear these stories, and the state hears these stories. So then there's a pushback. And again, it's sad for the legitimate doctors who are truly doing like a great effort to bring patients medicine. You have these guys who are just like whatever in a room and just signing people up and doing it every 6 months according to the state. And they're seeing people for 5 minutes in person. And like she said, she goes, it was a big hotel room. She goes, you go there. She goes, at first she even said, she goes, it was kind of creepy and kind of scary. And we hear these stories a lot where, patients are doing that. And it's sad for the program and on all levels, and it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, it's
embarrassing.
I mean, just like as far as besides talking about obviously cannabis and education, across the country, a big part of my platform is how unhealthy our health systems are.
Oh God, yes.
And we're so concerned about physicians taking these multiple choice tests for the board certification, which really, again, is a money grabber for larger organizations. And I'm sure we don't even need to get into that. But we need to actually be spending more time making sure that our physician population and healthcare organizations, that these individuals that are supposed to be helping people are healthy in their own right. If you are in a space where you are satisfied with your job, where you're not dealing with depression, where you're not dealing with burnout or other issues, you're less likely to take advantage of a situation like this, right? You're going to have the time and desire to educate yourself so that you can help patients. Because I guarantee you, if they are doing this in the cannabis space, they are also not educating their diabetes patients. This isn't like, oh, we think less of the cannabis patient, which I think they do, but we think less of the cannabis patient, so who cares? These are the same doctors that aren't doing anything good for their other patients.
Oh, listen, that's why I worry about the next wave, which is, ketamine clinics that are poorly managed. And, everybody knows that has to be done appropriately with coaching and things of that nature. You talk about the other psychedelics and, listen, done appropriately, I'm all for it. I think there's a role for it.
I agree.
To me, I think 5 years from now, we may, whatever we and listen, and Bridget, we can have you back again. I want to talk Delta 8 with you and the hemp space, because listen, I know that you have your hemp products and I know you stand behind, and I'm sure those are appropriate CBD and CBG and CBC and things of that nature. But, here in Florida, we have a huge problem with Delta 8. and also 10 and 6 and O and HHC and P.
I know.
And to me, we can't even get the politicians to even
They wouldn't
understand.
even acknowledge it. Yesterday at the meeting, somebody brought it up and they dropped it. They were like, it's not our problem. It's
Because
Department
they
of
don't
Ag.
understand it. And
Yeah.
because
They don't.
understand
They
it,
don't.
then they're just like, well, let's just skirt by it because they're not putting the time into, and that's why you always need really strong lobbyists. And because the lobbyists educate the politicians, because the politicians literally don't have the time to read all of the, they're not doing that, right? So you need strong lobbyists that can get them to where they need to be. And we need that in this space, period. We need it in healthcare, period.
Period. Agreed.
Well, they do. And they also need Dr. Bridget in Columbus and Dr. Barry in Tallahassee, and or both of us in both places, and not Dr. Bertha Madras, okay, or those that are preaching, okay, a message from 1969.
Yeah.
And to me, that's where I like to bring the legitimacy, into what I do, because once again, I'm not business Dr. Barry, I'm Dr. Barry, and I bring my 34 years in the emergency medicine space, to what I do now. And I know you do the same with your family practice experience, and I don't know. Listen, Ruta, like I said, that's why I was not going to delay and or cancel this green room, although we're stuck in traffic in Miami, of course. So, but we got another 2 hours until we even had to be there.
Bridget, can you tell us one of the most poignant stories that you had in your book, just to give us some kind of a grounding of what kind of stories?
Well, I mean, my head's flooding right now because not only, how am I doing here? Not only do we have this book here, but we are in the midst of editing book 2.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
My brain is flooded with stories right now. So book 2 is Courage in Cannabis, the Triumphant Stories, and absolutely mind-blowing stories of diabetes and trauma and addiction. And, I always have a mix because I want the book to appeal to a number of different people. So we have people that are in the business space where cannabis made a difference for them, as well as, of course, all the amazing patient stories or how it affects, women and moms. And so so both of these books are more in the general category where there's different stories for different people. And then after this book is out and rolling, we'll then start doing some more specific themed books around different genres that we want to be able to connect with. But gosh,
so can our patients submit their stories, Bridget?
100%.
How does that work? And
yes,
right.
absolutely.
Tell us more. Tell us where people can purchase your book and how
Yes.
people can participate. And I'll make sure that Don gets that posted somewhere where people can see it.
Yes, absolutely. So we are on Amazon. We are on we're on Amazon, Walmart, and Barnes and Nobles online. We're also in any small bookstore that has an online category and listing of books. We're usually on those small bookstores as well. So I always say, support your small bookstores if you can. And book 2 will be published this spring. So, it's a little crazy right now.
But it's a good Mother's Day gift. It's great for Memorial Day, I'm sure, for veterans because of the PTSD stories. So I think it touches so many lives that, it's a great gift to give, really.
And get in the hands of your politicians, get in the hands of the legislators.
It's a good idea to send it out as a gift.
Absolutely. You know what? Awesome. Great idea.
I love that idea.
Absolutely. Yeah. Get in the hands of your churchgoers, or, what I've heard the most, and I could talk about all the stories in the book, but what I love is hearing the stories from the people that read the book. And I have grandparents that have basically shunned their grandchildren or their nephew for using it. And after reading the book, they say, wait a minute, there's something legitimate here. And then they're now having conversations with their grandchild or what have you, because they have basically written them off. And that's where I realized that this is where we're making a difference, right? Let alone getting in the hands of these legislators as a tool. I'm actually going to Connecticut next week to talk to social workers, law students, nurses about cannabis and the shifting of the mindset of what we think cannabis is, because particularly frontline people, allied health, and I include the massage therapist, the yoga teacher, I don't care, your hairstylist, the people that are on the front line of talking to people
That's
make
excellent.
a difference of whether they ever see the physician in the first place. So I want to invest in the social workers and all of these people that interact with people every day, not so that they can get more cards, though I want people to be legal 100%, right? The idea is to get more people to get out of the stigma and get out of the propaganda and to realize that there's something that they're missing if they've never considered it.
Excellent.
Awesome.
I know we're out of time and we have to wrap up because we're at, I know, a little over 9 o'clock.
Yes.
We would love to have you back. I know I would. I mean, it's been fascinating and really you're a pleasure to listen to. And so we would love to have you back.
Absolutely.
And maybe
literally all
over
over the country, Ruta doing her thing. And
yeah,
once again, that's why I was so thrilled to have you, Bridget. And anytime that I can assist you in any of your efforts, please reach out.
Absolutely.
Pulling on the rope together is what we're all about. So
Yeah.
it's been so great to have you. And listen, everybody have a great week.
We will put up
see
her
you
book
next week in the Green
on the
Room.
website. It's already up on the website, so our
Great,
listeners
absolutely.
can go ahead and purchase. And thank you again, and tune in next week, everybody, and have a safe travel, Dr. Barry and Bridget. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.